and welcome to another episode of All American Wing Shooting Podcast. Today, we have another special guest that I connected with once again on the gram. And it's so crazy. Another SCI lady, Miss Sue Tidwell. She is a writer from Idaho, and she is here to pull the heartstrings of conservation.
Hello. Thanks for having me, Anna. I'm happy. It's good to be here.
Well, I'm so thrilled to have you. I love all of our mutual friends. And it's so crazy how many times we've been in the same building and we have not been able to connect.
I know because I'm at SAI every year too.
Yeah.
So yeah, I was thinking the same thing that we just haven't run into each other yet or seen. You're so busy when you're there. It's crazy.
How does that happen? It's like you don't want to sleep, you don't want to miss anything. There's
Well,
something
I
happening
have to
all the
say I'm
time.
older. I'm much older than you. So I don't always make those late night things like some of you guys do. So I miss out on a lot in that capacity.
But there is a lot of fun that goes on all day, every day. And I'm sure you're probably going to agree with me that after 2 years of Women Go Hunting, that's about the highlight of the whole week.
Yeah, that is really fun, the event and everything. And
I talked to Denise yesterday, Denise Welker. She's been on the podcast before. And she's really the reason that I got back into mentoring women and seeking out women that wanted to learn about the outdoors. It's like I got into this fast mode and I was like, hold on, I got to pump the brakes and remember my whole purpose of why I was here. And it was all because we went to Women Go Hunting, and off of that, I just got back to my roots. And she's just been such a powerhouse in my life. And so I was talking to her yesterday, and she was thrilled that you were coming on here. And I know that I'm gonna have to read your book.
And I will even send you an audiobook if you like audiobooks, because I can do that pretty easy, through the thing.
I
So,
I like flipping a page. I have
okay.
books everywhere, all over my house. I try to collect the old dog training books. Those are my favorite.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
I'll send you a book. So
Okay, I would
we'll
love to
connect
have a look.
afterwards.
So you are in Idaho. Did you grow up in Idaho?
No, I grew up in Western Pennsylvania. So in deer hunting country.
Yeah.
My brothers were deer hunters. My dad was a hunter. But yeah, I married a hunter and moved. I like to say I married into Idaho. So we live in a town of about 800 people. So it's a small ranch and farming community on a canyon kind of overlooking the Salmon River.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, it's
Well,
gorgeous here.
yes. I made it to Idaho for the first time over the summer, but I didn't get that much out of Boise.
Yeah, it's a city, but we're 4 hours north of the city.
There
So
was a little town that we went to that was a cowboy town. Boise City. Is that right? Not
maybe I don't know that one. But maybe because that's
there was
4 hours
some
south of us. So
there was a little town, and it was a quirky little place. It was like stepping back into the 1800s. And we went to the steakhouse, and this is hilarious because you know what I'm talking about, like dirt
uh-huh.
roads, and it looks like a movie set from a John Wayne movie. I mean,
Uh-huh.
we walk into this steakhouse, which was the bar, and
Exactly.
my buddy True Pierce, I don't know if you know him, but he's the editor of Guns America magazine,
Okay,
Hunt
now
365. Well, we were with him and his wife, and we walk in, and the lady says, "Are y'all the ones that had the reservation?" And we're looking around, and we're like, "Yeah," and there was nobody else in there. That would be us. So it was so sweet, like, they had put up a reserved sign on our table and stuff, and we were the only people there.
that's funny.
It was really funny. I'll have to find out what that little town was, because it was really neat to be there. And True, is an attorney in another life, and so he's like, "I actually have been in court in this courthouse." And I was like, "I thought it was a museum."
There's some cool little towns here for sure. And they're all, I don't know if you know this, but they're all about 15 miles apart because of or no, I'm sorry, 7 or 8 miles apart because of the Pony Express. So in the old days, or at least they are in our area up here in northern Idaho, because they could only go about 70 miles and then they had to switch horses. So all the little towns are spaced out about like that up
No
here.
way. Ah,
Mhm.
well, Idaho was a really cool place to experience American history that I think is overlooked, unless you
Yeah,
go
it is.
there. Well, if you were up there, are you fly fishing at all?
No, I have tried, you know what? I did go with some friends last year, I guess it was. And I tried my luck for a while, but I'll be honest with you, I just love the water. I was happier just like gallivanting around the water. Like I had my boots on and my little the shoes and everything they lent me. And I was just like walking through the water and I don't know. I'm not a very patient person in that sense. And I just don't have the finesse. I don't know if I don't have the finesse or anyway, I just enjoy the heck out of it. But I didn't, and I think I did get one on, but I just enjoyed being at the water more than just the fishing part, if that makes any sense.
Yeah, it makes perfect sense because I agree with you 100%. And we have ponds in our backyard, and Tater, my youngest, she likes to fish all the time. And she got a fly rod out of my closet that had never been opened for, I don't know, 8 years or so, and she just took right to it. And I was like, "Okay, kid, like, have fun." So, but, I'm not like that either. I'd probably rather just shoot targets in the backyard than fly fish, but I like the culture of the fly fishing lifestyle,
And the
and it's kind of
camping
a
and
big deal
the
here.
backcountry wilderness and the rivers, like, I'm
Yeah.
happiest when I'm near a river, as long as I'm near a river. That's what's funny about me loving Africa so much is because there's you can't even go in the water there, but I do, I'm like a water person, I love the water.
Okay, there's birds in Idaho, you're not chasing any birds either.
No, and I don't know if you know this, but I actually don't hunt myself. So I'm a non-hunter. I just fight really hard for the rights of hunters. So it's kind of a crazy story, but I grew up in that hunting family, but I never hunted myself. I was always one of those, I'd always see the deer hanging in the garage after it was dressed, and I was never along for the kill. I was just so happy when my brothers and my dad were out of the house because I was the oldest and I had 4 brothers. I was just so glad when I had some time to myself that I was happy when they left. But then I ended up marrying a hunter and I never went hunting with my family. And that was the guy thing to do.
Mhm.
And then when I married Rick, he was different than my brothers and my dad. And he loved me to go with him. And I love the backcountry and I love camping in the wilderness. So I started going with him. So I go on all these hunts. I'm with him in the backcountry and doing all these hikes. I just have never pulled the trigger yet with anything.
Yeah, I
So
love that you say "yes."
yeah, so I don't know. I mean, it may come. And I think I would really like bird hunting more. That sounds really cool. I love what I'm seeing from it. But that's nothing Rick has done too much of. So that's kind of new to me.
Okay, well, we have a couples SCI hunt coming up in November in Louisiana. Maybe y'all should just jump in, come with us. I will send you all
November,
the
I'm
details.
already booked for November, but hey, someday I will do that.
We have November, we have one in December, and we have one in February. So I'll send you all those dates, and maybe you guys can
Okay.
tag along. They're all with SCI couples, so it'll be a blast.
Sounds good. Sounds good.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I'm always on my SCI kick. I'm sure all the listeners are like, "Here she goes again with SCI." But I can't help but stress I meet the coolest people through this organization. And it's not always at an SCI event. It's just from talking with somebody else on SCI because we literally have connected on social media. Just having friends and I don't really remember how we got connected, but I love to see all your posts.
Well, thank you. And as far as SEI goes, what's also so exciting is that you get to see people that you've met on social media, like my social media friends from South Africa and all these places. You get to see them and give them hugs at SEI. It's
Mhm.
just so cool to. It's funny how you can build these relationships online and just how close they bring. And SEI gives you a way to all get together at one place. So that's pretty cool. I love that.
Okay. Well, you have written a book, and I want to hear all about it and what it did for you and how it changed your mentality towards conservation and hunting because it literally seems like it lit you on fire.
It did. Um, well, as I said, I grew up in the hunting family and had nothing against hunting. I understood hunters. I grew up in that lifestyle. But when my husband went into Africa, like all these little bells went off and like going, well, wait a minute. We put those animals on a pedestal. We think of them totally differently. The idea of Rick wanting to hunt a zebra was just like, oh my God, that's like a horse. You can't hunt
Mhm.
a zebra. And or same thing, he also was hunting a leopard, and a leopard, I'm like, well, I don't understand how hunting a leopard can be conservation. But I wanted to go to Africa, and I trusted my husband and hunters enough to go there with an open mind, even though I was scared to death because Rick wanted to do it like Hemingway style. We were out in a tent in the bush in Tanzania with lions roaring outside the tent, hippos right out front. And it was crazy. But I put on my big girl panties and went. And it was just, it changed my life. I mean, having the boots on the ground, seeing Africa firsthand will change you. I mean, it changes you in so many ways that you can't even put it in words. Africa just has a hold on you that you just don't even you can't understand it till you've been there maybe. But it lit a fire, like you said, it lit a fire in my gut because I went there and I knew if I, as someone who grew up in a hunting family, questioned hunting in Africa, I knew how many other people were like me. So by the end of the trip, I promised we had a female game scout. So I was really lucky. We had a female game scout who she's hired by the government oversee the hunt to make sure it's legal and documented. She has no affiliation with the hunting party at all. She met them the same day we did. So she taught me so much and why hunting is so important. Anyway, we became friends. She spoke pretty good English. And I made her a promise before leaving that I would try to help other people like me understand. So that promise, I really didn't know what I was promising at the time. I tried other things. And then, if that promise evolved into the book Cries of the Savannah. So I just wanted people to understand how regulated hunting is so important to the African people, and to the wildlife itself, and to saving habitat. So that's kind of what it stemmed from.
Okay, well, I wanna hear about it. I wanna hear about you
Okay.
branding in
So
South Africa.
So
Yeah.
in
There's
Tanzania, it's the advent. And first of all, the book is an adventure. I take people on this grand adventure. I want them to feel what I was feeling, feel like when the first time you hear that line, feel the fear, but yet the excitement, and feel those feelings of your first time on safari. It's just magical. Those first times on safari is just magical. And I wanted people to feel that with me. So I take them on the adventure with me, and I take them on my whole process of thought, and then I weave in conservation as I learned it. So I don't pound, pound, pound conservation because people wouldn't read it. It'd be boring as heck. So I just I weave it into the narrative, into the adventure. And then of course I came home and I couldn't just believe everything that was told me, even though I felt it in my gut and saw it firsthand. I
Mhm.
came home and researched, and I didn't use hunting resources. I used all non-hunting resources to back up what I learned. And of course, that took me down like a rabbit hole. The more you learn, the more passionate you get. The more passionate you get, the more you read, the more you study. Anyway, so it evolved into Cries of the Savannah. So luckily, it's been really well received. It's won 4 or 5 awards, and it's now an audiobook. And a lot of hunters, I wrote it for non-hunters because that's who I was trying to draw into that world. But luckily, hunters like it too. I think it takes them back to their first trip in Africa. That's what they tell me anyway, that they feel like they're reliving their first time in Africa. So luckily, hunters read it and then they pass it on to the non-hunters they know. Like, you know, cousins, aunts, uncles, parents, people who don't understand hunting. A lot of times a hunter will read it and then they'll buy a couple copies and take it to their library, or they'll give it to people that they want to understand. And once I can get it in a non-hunter's hands, I get I've changed minds. I mean, people I was just last week I was on a Zoom call, a book club, a female book club read it, and I always tell people, listen, I'll make myself available. If you want to have a book club and have me on a Zoom call, I'm happy to talk to you afterwards. So that's what I did last week. And 2 of the women on there were anti-hunters, and they totally changed their perception. So, and they
Really?
would have never read that book if someone hadn't, if they hadn't been in a book club and told, that was the requirement for that month. And that book club was even a fiction book club. So luckily, I was really lucky to get that book, that this person got that book in there. But yeah, I changed the minds of 2 of the anti-hunters, and they said they used to look at their neighbor who hunted Africa and had a trophy room, thought of them as being evil and disgusting. But now they said they totally changed their view of their neighbor. So anyway, it is changing minds. So that's the goal. I mean, entertain and also let them learn.
Okay, so I know that you have a soapbox about how you viewed the animals when your husband first told you that, "Hey, we're gonna go over there and I'm gonna shoot these," especially the way that people view elephants, right? Because of Dumbo.
Mhm.
And when you go over there and you experience the damage and the danger of all of this, like, get into more of that because in the wing shooting world, which I'll be going to South Africa next summer, and I know that the wing shooting is taking off like crazy there for, upland and for waterfowl. So I will get a piece of it, but I'm not scheduled at the moment to go chase big game. But I still know that as much as I love, hunting birds and having the dog experience here and the things that us wing shooters get so connected to, we are crazy about conservation here, but right now, like, we just don't face the controversy as much as the big game people, but I want the wing shooters to understand how critical it is because it will trickle down to us, and so, like, my goal is that we all, like, even as wing shooters, the some of us just take our head out of the sand kind of and say, "Oh my gosh, like, we've gotta get on board as a hunter." And have that mindset, like, we're all hunters, like, it's not like, well, we're just wing shooters anymore, and that was the biggest thing I think that I've learned with SCI because I just always been involved with organizations about birds and dogs,
Mhm.
and in realizing the threats that are going on across the country with the cats, and I would love to become a cat hunter, if I could fit that in my schedule, like, that's definitely a bucket list thing for me, and then here, Robbie, another pro mutual friend of ours, Robbie with Blood Origins, is fighting so hard for Colorado. So when I came across your post last week, I was like, man, this is something that we'll never get tired of talking about, of just hunters in general and fighting for what we believe in because the other side has brainwashed the world that's not involved in our industry to think that it's something that it's not. So I just want like more as many stories like yours that can I can showcase is the better because you love this as much as I do, and you don't even pull the trigger.
I know.
You
Well,
know?
I really do think I have to emphasize what you said. Hunters have to stick together. If not, they will divide and conquer.
Mhm.
One that you don't care about this kind of hunting, so you don't fight for it, so it disappears. And it's the same with Africa. People aren't as concerned with what's happening in Africa and them trying to limit things and do them there because doesn't think it affects them. But you can guarantee they're going to come after you when they're done with that.
Mhm.
And I am so passionate about Africa because I want it's going to affect everybody here too eventually. But the people of Africa depend on that. I mean, you have to, and let's get to some of those stories. So, okay, so if you were living in rural Africa and you have kids walking 2, 3 miles to school or walking 2 miles every day to get water morning and night, do you want lions there? And hyenas. I mean, couple years ago, I think it's been 3 years ago now, 4 boys were herding their cattle and in the forest and 3 of them were eaten by lions. One of them was able to escape to a tree. So the brother not had to he didn't just watch his brothers get killed, he had to watch his brothers get eaten by lions. So these are things we can't even comprom comprehend, and that's one thing Lillian taught me, because I was so torn about this whole Rick wanting to hunt a leopard. Well, Lillian explained to me that dangerous animals like that have to have a monetary value, because if not, people do not wanna live with them. But if that animal is worth and they poison, that's how most of like, lions and leopards, they're poisoned, they're speared, they're in traps, because people just don't want to live with them. And I have some pictures of that in the book. But anyway, so by making them valuable, it gives them a reason to live with these animals. If that animal is going to bring money in to put their kids in school, or it's going to bring money in to dig a well, or it's going to bring money in that they can build bomas to bring their cattle in at night, well, then maybe they're going to make those extra steps to make it safer and do the things that it's going to take to live with these wild animals.
Mhm.
But if not, why would you want to? If they're just killing your kids, killing your cattle, and making life a mess and not improving your life at all, why would you want to live with those animals? So they have to have a monetary value. And then by making them valuable, it also preserves habitat. So that's the biggest thing. That's the biggest threat to wildlife the world over. So anything that can make habitat valuable in its natural form is critical. And then let's talk about elephants. Elephants can go, I love elephants. I mean, I just spent 5 weeks in Africa with a girl I met on Instagram for 2.5 weeks, and she does eco tours in South Africa. And she invited me down, and I went for 2.5 weeks, and it was amazing. She wanted to show me a whole other part of Africa that I really hadn't seen before, as far as the non-hunting world. And but then I flew to Zimbabwe with my husband, and my husband was on an elephant hunt. Well, I love elephants. I adore them. I mean, you can see by my posts that I'm just infatuated with them. But they're dangerous. I
Yeah.
mean, these people, when we were tracking elephant, we were tracking right. When I say we, I mean our tracker. I was just following behind. These trackers are amazing. But they're leading us right through to the village, right past people's little huts, past their little fires where they're sitting cooking breakfast. I mean, and they destroyed, if they destroy their crops, they can't go to a grocery store. There's nowhere to replace it. That's their whole livelihood. So what happens is they end up trying to chase them off of crops or try to keep them from destroying their homes, or they have, like, they put their corn in storage, in like a um something for the winter, or for when it thing, and those elephants will go and get into that. So these people try to chase elephants off, and they end up getting, a lot of times, getting killed. I mean, my tracker are on in Zimbabwe, my one tracker's brother was killed by an elephant, and my other tracker's uncle was killed by an elephant. uh and they also know people who, killed by black mambas and all those other things too. I mean, their lives are just so something we can't even comprehend. I mean, human wildlife conflict is a day-to-day occurrence in them. And when I was kind of in tears when they were telling me, because I'm such an emotional person, and I said, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry. And they said, no, that's just part of living with wildlife. I mean, and it's just like but anyway, so we have to give elephants the same thing. We have to give them a value to make them want to live with these animals. So when we were there, Rick did succeed. I mean, it took 10 days, and we finally got, a bull elephant, because, there was tons of elephants, but finding that big bull, finding a bull that's old. Um, but all that meat went to the village. I got to see it
That's the
divided.
craziest thing is when an animal is taken, they will skin the animal. So, because we can talk about the difficulties with trophy imports at times. So the hunter gets to keep typically what? The ears, the tail, the tusk, and some people keep the feet on the elephants. And then all the community comes up and lines up to take everything left of the elephant.
Everything, bones, stomach lining, everything. And
Everything.
in Rick's case, we don't anymore, the way the import bans are. It's so difficult to get anything in that we kind of went knowing that we probably can't get anything in. I mean, he measured the tusk so he can maybe get replicas made, but if it's going to cost us thousands and thousands to fight and get them back, we're probably not going to get it back, because there's
And it
that.
could make sense. Like,
That's why, and not all hunters want to pay all that money and not have their trophy. But
right.
yeah, so that's why the import bans hurt so much. But in Rick's case, he wanted the experience, and we just accepted the fact that he might never see the actual tusk. But yeah, it was amazing to see them. And in this village, it was done a little differently than what you often see. We loaded all the meat up in 3 pickups and a trailer, 3 loads. They had to cut 2 miles in a road, 2 miles in, to get there to where the elephant went down. And then they took it to the village, and then they had a ledger, and they actually called names and gave it out very uniform. Like, they divided, like the chief got a certain amount, the witch doctor got the trunk, I believe it is. The chief gets the leg that it falls on, and I might have those reversed. And then the rest of the meat gets split up, and they're just chopping it up in chunks, and they divide it up and give it according to that. So it just touches your heart when like you said, it's one thing to hunt meat for yourself, but when you're hunting meat that's going to go to people who are protein deficient and who's get very little meat, just touches you in a different way.
Yeah, I think that's what's motivated me to wanna go, because 'cause I've never desired to leave the States. There's so much here to do, and I don't wanna ever really hunt without my dog. And that's
Mhm.
the thing with the wing shooters, it's like we have a different type of tradition. So, leaving Ramsey Russell does such a great job, which he does take char to most of his places, but um, he exposes that and gets to advertise hunting all over the world and with different cultures, and it really is a different life that we can't comprehend unless you just experience it.
Yeah, it's amazing, and the people are so special, and, yeah, it's I highly recommend it. Even if you don't go there to hunt, just go to Africa, period. And there's so
Oh,
many
definitely.
people have this misconception that hunting in Africa is only for the rich people, and that it's so expensive. And yeah, it can be depending on where you go and what you're hunting, but you can go for the same price as a mule deer hunt in Idaho. I mean, if you're for a guided mule deer hunt. So you can go to South Africa and hunt some plains game for very reasonable and hunt several animals. So, and same thing with ecotourism. There's so many ways to do it. It doesn't have to be the 5-star lodges. You can go wild camping or tent camping, and there's just so many ways to do it on a budget. So you don't have to be rich to go to Africa.
So, what traditions do you think are overlapping after being on these backcountry hunts? Because there are people here that think what you guys do on a regular basis is a dream, you know? So what do you think is the tradition that overlaps all the experiences that you've been on?
Well, probably the camaraderie. I mean, here, whenever you're hunting or you're in the backcountry or anywhere for that matter, wing shooting, I'm sure it's the same. From what I've read with posts, because people seem so close, but there's just a camaraderie with the people you're hunting with and stuff. And it's the same in Africa. And in Africa, it's a little different because you are with the same people for the entire time, for 2 weeks. Like, we were with that last group time for 16 days, and in Tanzania, the one I wrote the book about, we were there 22 days. And you're in this vehicle with, a driver, a games or the PH, 2 trackers, the game scout. You're with them from 6 in the morning till 6 at night. So you're with them all day. It's just this whole the bond you build. You know, it's just so I just fell such in love with the people of Tanzania, of people of Masimba camp that, they were just, oh, just so wonderful, and they adopted us into their lifestyle, especially when they knew that we were like, I tried to learn Swahili, I learned as much Swahili as I could,
You
and
did.
yes, yes, and Jambo, that's hello, and Asante Sana is thank you, and Lala Salama, sleep well. So I tried to learn as much as I could, and that meant so much to them, and so they just kept teaching me more words, and it was just such a special experience. And that's what I try to do in the book. I think for people to care about Africa, they have to care about its people because it's tied together. I mean, wildlife and humans, the well-being of both they're intertwined. Because if one's not doing well, the other isn't going to do well. So that's what I try to do in the book. I try to introduce people to the people in Masimba camp, so you got to know them and fall in love with them like I did, and then you'll care about them, or that's the hope anyway. That you'll care about them, and that you'll fight for Africa too. And I don't mean with fists, but with
Yeah.
words.
Yeah. So, okay, we were talking before we started recording about COVID and during COVID and how, I really focused on my career. You said you wrote your book during that time. Something within us drew us closer to the hunting tradition that we loved so much during a time when everything was shut down. Right? So in the States, we couldn't go to lodges anymore, for a period of time and there were all the we were all scared, that these lodges would go out of business and all the things like you just made this statement that the people and the hunting community is tied together, so closely there. Like, what's so different here, or what are we missing here in the States to have that kind of spirit?
You mean like a safari spirit or that?
Yeah.
Well, I just think that
The
we're
lore that
always.
you have there, like, why don't we have that here? Because like I told you, I started this All American Wing Shooting Podcast, like, let's talk about the heart of the American hunter. But when we get on the podcast, we talk about things and we love our dogs and and it's just this constant theme, but it's not just the
You know what I
passion.
think it is? I think we take too much for granted in this country. I mean, I can't even get a shower now without feeling guilty. If I get more than a 2 or 3-minute shower, I feel guilty. I mean, because after you're in a place where they had to scoop water out of a hole in the ground and then carry it to a tank, heat it over the water, carry it up a ladder, pour it into a thing so that I could have a shower. I mean, you just start we take so much for granted, including our conservation. I mean, I grew up in Pennsylvania in a hunting family. I had no idea what hunters had done for conservation. I had no idea till I became so passionate about writing this book and did my research. Um, I realized what hunting has done for America as far as bringing species back. I had no idea that so many animals were on the brink of extinction. I mean, I think I knew buffaloes were, but I didn't know all the other animals were on the brink of extinction too, or so close, were so low in numbers until we came along and started saving habitat and, passed all the Pittman-Robertson Act and the game national parks and stuff. So I think we just take our rights for granted. And when you see them being stripped away, and when you see them being stripped away, especially in Africa's kind of like first on the chopping block, trophy hunting, because people have this negative connotation of trophy hunting. And what is a
Yeah.
trophy really? I mean,
Yeah,
you're
you're taking the largest animal, which is the oldest animal, which is not contributing back to that species, and then the world spins it, and then the ignorant believe it.
I
And
know,
it's like,
and the meat is
okay,
still
well,
getting used. The meat is still getting used. I mean, they must think we just they leave it on the ground, and not only that, but finding an older male where there's way less of them who is smarter. They've learned a thing or few two over the years. They're
this is
hardly
crazy that we're talking about how the left has brainwashed people
even
without
hunters.
experience of our world. Okay, so this is so funny because the SCI Illinois actual Chicago chapter, which, when you think about people that are like anti-hunting, you definitely think of Chicago. They posted 3 days ago on Facebook the definition of a hunter, and it's iconic. Like, it's something that I want to frame and put in my house because it is the theme when you walk in here and there's nothing but Ducks Unlimited prints and dead animals on the walls, and it's because those experiences taught me so much about myself and gave meaning to life. It's like you want to celebrate, right? They say hunter is a noun, a person who pays over 90% of the cost for conservation and maintenance of wildlife and habitat and gets no credit for it. And that's it. It's like we're sitting here celebrating the fact that people are saving for years to go to Africa to be part of that legacy, to have that experience here. There's so many organizations that would give and host free hunts, and people miss they miss the whole point that
Mhm.
because of the Pittman-Robertson Act, we are the number one conservationists, and we're not even tooting our own horn enough and sharing it in a way to bring more people on board.
Yeah, and it's
I'm
so
thrilled. I'm so thrilled that you celebrate Africa. I'm so excited to get to share that first time experience and then come back and just talk to you about it because I'm sure it's
yeah, I
going to be
can't
the
wait
same
to
for
hear
me.
your experience because that
But at the same time, it's like, man, oh man, how do we lose that? And you're so right. It's because we take it for granted here. And we watch our friends at SCI fight daily for our hunting rights right here that we take for granted. When we, as a whole hunting community, should be so protective of our lifestyle that we're intimidating because there's so many of us.
Mhm.
Right, but we just kinda hide in the sand and be like, "Oh, yeah, the Ben and his crew will take care of it," and there's, like, 5 of them.
Here's the problem, most hunters, their whole nature is to be in the woods and not be in front of a camera and not be sitting in a somewhere fighting for this stuff. Do you know what I mean? That's their whole nature.
Yeah.
So, it's hard for them to to step outside their comfort zone and say, get involved in that way. Luckily, people are, and I think hunters are starting to realize that they can't just sit in the back of the room anymore. They have to step up to the plate and they have to join together because you can't just let one just because you don't do that kind of hunting, you can't let that get taken away because they're just going to keep coming,
Yeah.
and that goes for Africa too. But yeah, but as far as and I do want to
It
say
is
this,
heavy. You can sigh again because it's so heavy.
so heavy and it's so frustrating. Like I just get, well, as you can tell, I'm very passionate about it. So I get so frustrated when I see certain things or even some hunters don't understand quote trophy hunting in Africa. And they only hunt for meat and they act like they're better than everybody else because they only hunt for meat. Well, you tell me you're not still taking that antler home. You're not still saving, you know what I mean? It's what is a trophy? My trophy is totally different than your trophy. It's all relative. But I and so that's one of the things that surprised me most is that even some hunters don't quite understand hunting in Africa. But so that's why I'm trying to get them to understand too, and of course non-hunters. But here's the thing in Africa. What do you think is going to happen to all these areas if hunting is eliminated? It
Mm,
is going to be turned into pastures,
yeah.
pineapple fields, cornfields, I mean, infrastructure, because that's the only thing saving these wild areas now is these hunting areas. I mean, you have tourism, and a lot of people say, well, let's just make it all into photo tourism. Photo tourists do not want to go to the places hunters go. I
Does
mean,
anybody watch YouTube where the elephants are flipping the trucks with the photographers inside? And it happens
let me
more than
tell you
people
about
talk
my
about.
last experience. We were in Zimbabwe and we were hunting elephant, but we were coming home that day and we always drive the riverbeds looking for the elephant tracks, a big elephant bull tracks. We were on the riverbed and the riverbed's like 300 yards wide. So it's a nice large riverbed and it's all sandy. And we had gotten stuck in that riverbed earlier in the week and had to dig ourselves out. So we're on this riverbed there. They try to stay in the same track so they don't get stuck again. And there's like 30 elephants up ahead. And of course, I'm loving elephants. So our PH knew that. So he stopped way back to let them pass. And I got to enjoy these 30 elephants walking across the river. And so 20 of them got to the other side and they were off to the side and they were real calm. And, they had babies with them. It was just magical. And then there were still 10 elephants left on the left. And they didn't look like they were going to cross. So finally, our PH, Johan, thought, okay, it looks safe. So, we started to go, and so we got, 150 yards on the side, 150 yards on that side because we're right pretty much in the middle of the riverbed. And one of the elephants on the left screamed. Those elephants that were nice and calm morphed instantly. They came after us. Like the three of the females came after us. I have it a little bit on video, but I'm in the back of the Jeep, so we're just bouncing all over, and we were scared to death. Our trackers were yelling. They were pulling. Our game scout had his rifle ready. My head tracker was pulling his gun out, but luckily we didn't get stuck, and we were able to get ahead, and they finally buggered off. But it was terrifying. I mean,
Yeah.
if anything would have happened, we would either had to kill a bunch of elephants or we would have been dead. And they can just change that. And granted, we were in their spot, so they were doing what they were supposed to do. They're protecting their own. But that's just how quick things can change. Elephants can be these gentle giants, but if they feel threatened or they think one of their ones, are in danger, they are
Mhm.
mountains of mayhem. So anyway, I don't even know where I was going with that, but you were talking.
Well,
But
just
oh,
things
anyway,
that
yeah, the
fascinate me
elephants.
seeing, they're dangerous. Like, have you had any encounters with the hippos in the water? Like, that's what scares me. Is, you get out in these little canoes, it's nothing but like a wicker frame with a tarp around it, and there could be 30 hippos underwater, and then all of a sudden you just come up and you're a goner. Or the
Oh,
crocodiles or, like.
I'm as afraid of hippos as I am anything, even though I love them. But when I was in South Africa this time with Haley, we were on these eco tours and we went to this place we went canoeing. and I kept saying, "Oh my god, you guys, I love the water, but canoeing in hippo and croc infested waters." And he kept telling me, "We're going down a canal. There's it's too deep. The hippos don't hang out here." So I did it, but I was scared to death. But luckily, we didn't see any hippos. But then later, we went to Manipoles after the Zimbabwe thing for a couple days, and a hippo did charge the boat. We were Rick was we were tiger fishing and for a few days, and the hippo did charge the boat. And yeah, we found a couple lift the boat up. There, it was like an obstacle course. There were so many hippos that it was like an obstacle course. It was terrifying. Luckily, I felt a little better because the boat was a little bigger. So I felt like, well, there's a chance. The thing is, you don't want to sink a boat in there because you have crocs everywhere. So it's not
Yeah.
like you can just swim to the shore and get out. I mean, anyway, it's a whole different experience there.
And there's people here in the States that go through Yellowstone, right? And get out and not think anything about grizzly bears and buffalo. And they just like, oh, they're cute and furry. Thank you to these cartoon movies that have misrepresented nature.
Exactly. Yeah, you have to respect these wild animals. I mean, they're amazing to see. And it always depends where you're at too. Cause like when I was with Haley, we were in a couple of the parks and the animals there are a little bit more used to you. So you can let the elephants you can stop. And if we had a couple close encounters where they walked right up to us, but they're not threatened there. They're not hunted there. They're not harassed there by villagers, when they're pushing them away from corn. So it's a whole different, but still, they're still wild animal. Anything can happen, but it's
Yeah.
still amazing. But I'll tell you, when we were Rick wanted to go croc hunting. So we went to Mozambique a couple years ago because Tanzania was supposed to be our one and done. That's why we splurged with Tanzania. But you can't go to Africa just once. So we've been back a few times since. But we went to Mozambique for Rick to go croc hunting. And I'm picturing like this little river, I knew you had to hunt them from blind. So I'm picturing this little river and I'll be sitting there in the blind with Rick and we'll just see all this, cool stuff. I had no idea the Zambezi River was like 5 to 8 miles wide in spots and it has a strong current and there's hips and crocs everywhere and there's sandbars everywhere. So we go and we get in this little 14-foot boat with five of us and there's like this much clearance on the water. It was terrible because we had to hunt from an island. So we did build blinds, but they were on the islands in the middle of this river. So oh my God, that was a whole new adventure for sure. But I survived it, but it was scary. I was never so happy for him to get a croc in my life. It took 6 days, I think, but I was so happy when we didn't have to go back out in that river. And I love the water, but that's a different story. And those people in those little boats, oh my gosh, those
Crazy.
dugouts, no way. Crazy.
I know. Well, I can say that my wing shooting friends in South Africa don't really have these kind of stories. It feels a bit safer.
Yeah, it depends where you like I said, every nation in Africa is so different in every area of Africa. So even South Africa has so many different terrains and countryside. So yeah, every time you go to Africa, it's definitely a whole new experience. But it's still wonderful no matter what.
Well, I think you've about talked to everybody listening to go into Africa. It's like straight up FOMO. Like, we got to have some stories. We
Totally.
need some stories. Okay, I'm going to ask you one last question
Okay.
because you've lived in the East and you live now in Idaho, which is almost every hunter's dream to come and do something in Idaho, no matter if you're big game or a fisherman or an upland hunter. Idaho is a place to be. So, based on your world travels, what would you say is so special about the heart of the American hunter?
Again, I think I'm gonna come back to the camaraderie of it. Once you get past that infighting of some of my hunting's better than your hunting or whatever, that kind of thing. But the hunters themselves with the whole like seeing a hunter take a new hunter or a kid or a woman, seeing the joy that a hunter gets when somebody gets their first animal is
Mhm.
so special. I mean, I've seen that my whole life with my brothers and nieces and nephews as they come up and then with my nieces here in Idaho, Rick takes hunting his nieces. It's just so special the bond that hunters have and the camaraderie with being excited for someone else too. I'm
Yeah.
going to tell a quick little story about when we were home in Pennsylvania. Um a few years back, and they had just opened up archery season for bear right behind. Oops, sorry. Sorry about that. They had just opened up bear season behind my family's house. So my dad's friend, who is older, got a bear right close to dark, but he injured it. And it was kind of dark, and he looked and he couldn't find it. So he came back. And of course, those small towns, they tell everybody. Rick was home with me that time. He couldn't believe it. The next morning, 9 people showed up to look for this bear. Some of them had called off work. I mean, you literally had no room, even they were parked in our yard because we didn't even have room in our driveway. And yeah, and Rick said it was just, he said, I've never seen anything like it. Because in Idaho, it's a little different because you're such in the back country that you just don't have that help easily at hand.
Mhm.
And Rick was just shocked. Yeah, 9 people showed up, and sure enough, within an hour, they found the bear. And he said it was the easiest pack out they ever had because they had so much help. But yeah, that's what's cool about hunters.
I think so too, and I love the mentorship of our community, and that's really been my purpose to get involved. Is like once I learned something, I just wanted to help somebody else figure out their own journey, right? It's like this is how you get started and go have fun kind of thing. So I hope that we get to share a hunt this year. I hope to get you in the wing shooting field so that you don't have to wait to travel across the world to go have your fun.
I would like to experience that because, like I said, that is, we went hunting one time. Some people came and asked to go bird hunting on the ranch, and they had some dogs. So we got to join them. And that was so fun watching the dogs work. I really enjoyed that, but I haven't had a lot of that opportunity to do that. So it'd be really cool. Like I said, I love the idea of watching the dogs. And seeing what they do. They sound pretty amazing.
It's my favorite part for sure. There's nothing more special than having your little furry team player in the field and then come home and snuggle up on the couch and talk all about what you just did all day. And yeah, I, that's the only thing that I don't look forward to leaving. Like there's so many places across Europe and stuff where I want to go shoot because of the history and the traditions there. But then it's like, man, I leave my dog at home.
Yeah, it is.
Well, I have thoroughly enjoyed having you on today. I cannot wait to read your book. I'm going to try to get a little book club together to see if other ladies want to read it with me because
Oh, that'd be
it was
awesome. Hey,
so
and
important.
if you have a book club and you want to have a if you want to have a Zoom meeting after everyone's done with the book, just to ask questions, I'm happy to do that.
I
So,
would love to do that. So if you're listening and you're interested in reading Cries of the Savannah, telling the tales of Sue's trip to Africa and the importance of conservation. And it's not going to just apply there, it's going to be the principles of conservation that apply just in life. And so come read it with us.
or listen to it. I even have in the audiobook, I actually have the lions and hippos and elephants. So like as I hear it, you kind of hear it too.
Ah, well,
Yeah,
we may
so
have to
I
play
kind of
that.
just because I wanted people to feel like they were there. So anyway, so that
That's so cool.
and I
Okay,
and I
well,
did
I
it
may have to.
myself. So I mean, I did the narrating. It was tough, but another thing I had to teach myself. But anyway, so but yeah, so check it out. I'd love people to read it, and I'd love to have a book club. That'd be fun.
Well, thank you so much for taking time to come on and spend time with me and share your life.
Thank you for having me, and it was so nice to talk to you. I'm thrilled anytime I can talk about Africa. So thank you.
Well, I can't wait until I can call you and say, "You're not going to believe this."
Yes, that'll be awesome. I can't wait to hear all about it.
All right, talk soon.